Hello guys, today we bring to you a story about a cute little girl who has the power of shapeshifting into a squirrel. Their world has many shapeshifters in important families, but being a weak and timid squirrel has brought our protagonist a lot of troubles and no good. But it is all going to change soon. Watch her story as she wins everyone's heart with her cuteness, both as a human and a squirrel, and how she solves all of her problems using her wits. Our protagonist, a cute girl named Beaty, lives in an elegant mansion, although her living conditions are not that good. Today was a special day, as she was going to meet a distinguished guest, and her aunt told her to bow before the young boy carrying the blood of the noble white snake in his veins. The girl has no idea what was happening or how the world had just turned upside down for her in just a few moments. The last thing she remembers is being wounded and bleeding out on the ground, sure that she is going to die. She had lost all hope, but when the end seemed near and darkness approached her, she was given a second chance. She is shocked to see the white-haired boy in front of him, whose name is Retter. Moments ago, the same person had killed her, and he was standing in front of her as she breathed her last. Retter, the crown prince of the Astrum Empire, was her only friend, her lover, and the man who took her life. As her aunt tells her not to dawdle around and bow down before the young prince, Beaty realizes that today was a very fateful day. It was the same day as when she first met Retter, and since they were both looking much younger than she remembers, she reaches the conclusion that she has returned to her past self. While Beaty's aunt, Viscount Farina, is insistent on making her use good manners, Retter has no problem with the girl being a little awkward, as today was their first time meeting and she must be shy. He tells her that it was okay, and Beaty remembers those words coming out of his mouth countless times in her past life. He told her it was okay, even if she was a descendant of poor squirrels, and he stayed by her side as a friend. She believed his words, but then one day, he showed her his true nature and bit her neck to kill her. In the life she has lived, Beaty always used to live alone, with only some books as her company. Then one day, her aunt, Viscount Farina, came into her room and pulled her along to go somewhere special. It was rare for the girl to even get to leave the house, but today her aunt was taking her to meet the prince, who was here to take her as his fiancé. The woman thought that even her useless niece could have some value like this and kept on lecturing her about how to be an obedient wife. Back then, the young Beaty thought she was going to meet a terrifying person, but Retter was the opposite of her expectations, as he was kind and considerate. When he introduced himself as Retter Astrum, the second prince of the Astrum Empire, she instantly started liking him. Then he noticed the small mark called Signum on her wrist, which was bore only by the shapeshifters, who were called the descendants of the constellations. Beaty was ashamed of her Signum. After all, she was just a lowly squirrel born into a family of lions. But Retter told her that her Signum was unique and beautiful. Hearing such kind words for the first time, the girl decided to trust the prince completely, and he became her only friend. They got engaged, and while she thought being with a prince would make her life better, it only became worse thanks to her aunt, who became even more controlling. In the name of training her for her future life, she made her live in harsh conditions without any comfort and did not give her the things the girls of her age desired. She did not have nice dresses or tasty food, so she had to spend her time reading some books and the old newspapers. She also used her ability to transform into a squirrel and often snuck into the garden to see the world outside. As she grew up, Retter was always there for her, and when he found her reading a book about merchants one day, she told him that she wants to be a merchant when she grows up and travels the world. Her biggest motivation was a quote that said that merchants should always be shameless, and her aunt often called her shameless. She took that insult in a positive way and made it into her motivation. And then Retter asked her if she was willing to give up the chance of becoming a queen in exchange for this dream. Beaty was taken aback, but then she told the prince that he must also not want to marry her, and was doing so just because of the family's pressure. Retter did not give her a clear answer but said that since they were friends, no matter what, he would support her dream. Beaty was thankful to have a friend like him, and they hatched a plan to make her dream come true. Retter told her that if she ever decides to leave the capital to become a merchant, he will help her, and he kneeled before her, asking her to trust him. They planned everything as meticulously as they could, and Beaty decided to leave the mansion at her coming-of-age ceremony. Unfortunately, that dream could not come true, as on her 18th birthday, she met Retter, unaware of what he was planning. She was happy that their day had finally come, and she hugged him. As she asked him why he was not saying anything, Retter bit her neck. Beaty was stunned for a moment before she collapsed to the ground, coughing blood because of the poison in his bite. As she wondered why Retter would do this, she heard her aunt's voice and was confused to see her there, as everyone except her was supposed to go out today. Beaty realized that her aunt had conspired with her fiancé to kill her, and she does not understand why. She was struggling and tried to get up, but Retter held her hand when she prayed for someone to save her. Her signum was starting to release energy as she died, and the prince says he was going to take it because it was the most precious thing about her. The devastated Beaty had no choice but to suffer in silence, as she did not even have the energy to talk back. Retter always used to tell her that everything was okay and he was on her side. But today, he was the one who killed her mercilessly. Using her remaining strength, Beaty tried to crawl to the door in front of her, but it was too far, and she died while trying to reach it. And when she opened her eyes after that darkness, she found herself facing Retter again. And ironically, it was the day of their first meeting. And because of what he did to her in a previous life, Beaty feels deceived and repulsed as he introduces himself. She walks angrily toward Retter and gives him a forceful slap. Like everyone else, Retter is in disbelief, and Farina yells at Beaty as the maids scream. However, Beaty is still not done because in her opinion, Retter deserved this. After shoving him to the ground, she pummels him. Farina instructs the guards to arrest Beaty, and when they catch her, she asks them to hold her tightly while she corrects the impolite girl. She detested her niece and was in a foul mood at the moment. However, Beaty abruptly disappears in a cloud of smoke as she had transformed into a squirrel. She was using the trees to flee, and the guards try to apprehend her after Farina informs them about her. Beaty outruns them despite their cries for her to stop and return, because she has made the decision to abandon this disastrous life. She arrives at the town square where a driver is calling for any last-minute passengers who would like to accompany him as his carriage prepares to leave for the north. She is on the top of his carriage and gives the mansion where she grew up one last glance before the carriage moves forward. Beaty was still quite emotional about leaving her house, even though the mere thought of going outside made her happy. She is confused, torn between her sense of freedom and her nostalgia. She was leaving the place where she was meant to spend the remainder of her days far because Retter was not among the people she could consider friends anymore. She makes the decision to let go of her past and embrace the new world. When Farina returns to the mansion, she is having a meltdown and calls Beaty a spoiled brat. Retter thinks Beaty is pretty strong for a girl her age as he spits out a broken tooth. He calls Farina while she is shaking with rage and remarks that this introduction with Beaty was very unusual. Farina breaks down in tears and apologizes, stating that she had no idea why Beaty had behaved in such a bizarre manner. But Retter asks if it wasn't her fault, staring her down. He believes Farina told the girl to do this in order to damage his reputation, and then join his brother's side. Fearful, Farina declares that she would never consider doing that because she was devoted to him. She asks the prince to give her some time and swears she will find a solution to this issue. She vows to keep his name untarnished and to prevent any rumors about this incident from spreading. Retter takes her word for it and promises to let her use the royal crystal ball to locate Beaty if necessary. But Beaty's already out of town, and she is in front of a mansion in a snowy area. She has arrived in North Aslan and is shivering from the cold. She arrived here unannounced and was fortunate enough to receive a complimentary ride in a carriage as a squirrel. She thought about properly exacting revenge on Retter while traveling, but she could not do much as a tiny squirrel. Then she recalled that Retter avoided the first prince at all costs, so Beaty intends to take advantage of the first prince's abilities if he survives. And she figures that the first prince was undoubtedly alive because she is only 8 years old at the moment. She becomes disheartened soon, because she cannot find a way to meet him as he was already fighting wars. Furthermore, a lot of people were aiming at young children who had trouble shapeshifting and stealing their signums, and she was among those kids. She had earlier discovered 2 men reading a newspaper article that spoke about Duke Aslan's royal army defeating the army of the Holy Empire for the first time. The men were ecstatic because they believe that the Great War will soon come to an end if the Duke wins, and something they talk about gives Beaty an idea. With the insight she had just gained, the Great War might be over and her problems could be resolved. Beaty was eager for the war to end 10 years ago as well, but then something unexpected happened. For the first time, the Golden Lion Duke, who had won all of his previous fights, was forced to back down, and the war's tide then shifted against the Empire. After 10 years, the strategies that would have allowed him to win that battle and prevent the initial retreat were found. Therefore, if the Duke is aware of what will happen in the future, he can address the core of the issue and win. Beaty thinks about Leonhard Elda Aslan, dubbed the Golden Lion Duke, who was her father she had never seen or spoken to before. As she grew older in her previous life, he never made an effort to see her. She wrote to him numerous times, but never received a response, and only got a reply once. In a letter to him, Beaty requested to see the Duke's mansion just once before the coming-of-age event, and she was devastated when the Duke gave her back the torn portions of her letter. Beaty believes she can make the Duke an offer he can't turn down, despite the fact that she is an abandoned child. She'll beg him to allow her to remain on the estate until she reaches adulthood. She will then sign up for the trade union of her dreams after that. Better yet, she would succeed as a merchant and create her own trade union. And that was all contingent upon her making the initial deal with the Duke. Beaty's plan has now guided her to the Duke's mansion's gate, but she doesn't know how to get inside. However, the guards notice something in front of the gate, and upon closer inspection of the peculiar squirrel, they identify her. The gate opens, startling Beaty, and she tries to run away fearing someone would come after her. However, the guard at the gate addresses her as a young lady and requests her to stay put. Beaty is perplexed and the soldier comes to meet her. He says that it was risky for her to travel alone, and he can't allow her to continue traveling in that manner. Beaty tries to ask him how he knew her, but because she is talking in squirrel lingo, the man is unable to understand her. He brings Beaty inside the mansion first, where her cuteness makes the maids there her fan. The butler emerges to rebuke them for being too rowdy as they laud the girl. Even Johanna, the butler, is stunned when she sees Beaty, and thinking that she is not welcome in this home, the girl becomes depressed. However, Johanna did not become silent for that reason. Beaty looks so weak and starving that the butler nearly bursts into tears and offers the young woman a ton of food. Now that she's dressed nicely, Beaty is enjoying her meal and reflecting on the friendly greeting she got here. However, she controls herself so that her feelings don't overwhelm her. No one in this world, in her opinion, gives anything away for free, and all she can think of when she thinks that is Ryder's face. Beaty believes that if someone does good deeds for you, they are likely concealing a motive. She also believes that she must now pay them for their cordial welcome because it is part of the deal. When she informs the butler that she would like to speak with her, she advises her not to be overly formal. Despite her nervousness, Beaty tells Johanna that she would like to trade. After some time, Johanna realizes that Beaty has an idea that she would like to discuss with the Duke, but she doesn't really think much of it. Johanna believes that Beaty receives a large amount of pocket money from the master, but she may not find happiness in money, and was here because she missed her father. The butler is unaware that Beaty's aunt spent all of the money and left the girl with nothing. Telling Beaty that her father has left to battle the bad guys, Johanna adds that if he knows this is how much his daughter misses him, he will vanquish them fast and make his comeback shortly. Johanna wants the girl to stay with them until the Duke returns because of this. Beaty responds that in that scenario, she is no longer required to meet the master of the house and would prefer to speak with the individual in charge of this situation. This is because she needs to get the word out fast before the event called First Retreat takes place. Beaty asks Johanna if the Duke's direct representative could speak with her, and after giving it some thought, Johanna informs Beaty that the manager took care of pressing issues while the master was away. Beaty and the butler are startled when someone bursts through the door as they are talking. A young man enters the room, his hands covered in blood and his hair black. He is Beaty Aslan, the 15-year-old son of the Duke, and Beaty's elder brother. Taunting her as the squirrel who left home, he greets Beaty, who just looks at him tensely, unsure of how to respond. She believes Beaty views her as merely a troublemaker, and wonders would he accept her story if she told him she had to flee in order to survive. Given that Beaty is currently of sensitive age, Johanna advises Beaty to use more caution when speaking, and along with the butler, a guard enters and cleans Beaty's face and hands that were covered with blood. Although Beaty had never visited the Duke's mansion, she was familiar with the boy standing in front of her thanks to his portraits. He was the brilliant swordsman Beaty Aslan, who began fighting at the age of 10. He went by the moniker Lion Lord and was infamous for being ruthless. Because Beaty has low self-esteem, she believes her brother dislikes her. However, he finds something strange about her. Beaty asks Beaty why she smells like a snake, and she recalls her fight with Retter. Instead of responding to his question, Beaty finds herself mesmerized by Beaty's amber eyes. They were referred to as Aslan's golden eyes, and just one glance from them could terrify someone. Beaty is very close to him, but she doesn't feel under any pressure from his presence. Rather, she experiences warmth and comfort, as though a hole in her heart is being filled. Beaty is distracted when Beaty speaks once more, and she believes that he finds it annoying that she is his younger sister. But that is not the truth, as Beaty asks Beaty if she is afraid of him, and picks her up because she still doesn't understand his question. Beaty becomes anxious, but when her brother gives her a hug, the snake odor leaves her. She doesn't understand why her brother is giving her a hug. However, he claims to have finished his assignment and that Beaty now smells normal. Beaty has encountered something like this for the first time, so she is unsure of how to respond. and when she doesn't respond, Cardalus asks if she's dead, earning a good scolding from the butler. Beaty has now made the decision to avoid Cardalus, and she leaps to her feet, dashes back to the couch, and coils into a fetal position. She's still shaky from her earlier experiences and believes her brother despises her, so she is confused why he would do that. Johanna scolds Cardalus, pointing out that Beaty needs to be handled more carefully to prevent injuries. Cardalus claims he did not even draw his sword, because the only injuries he is aware of is the physical kind. Then, referring to her as that thing, he questions Johanna about Beaty. She scolds him for using those words, but he asks if he should call her just Squirrel in that case because she does not have a name. Beaty is very hurt by these words. She recalls her previous life in which she was ignored while living in a filthy corner of her home. She was referred to as half-blood by everyone until she was 10 years old and did not even have a name. The maids discussed how the girl's aunt mistreated her, which was a major factor in why they referred to her as half-blood openly. Furthermore, Beaty's black eyes were a clear indication that she was actually half-blood. In this world, the shapeshifters had the eyes of the lion, the snake, and the dragon. These eyes, which were always golden, belonged to all the different kinds of shapeshifter in this world, and the intensity of the golden color signified their strength. The Aslan shapeshifter were particularly well known for having golden eyes. Beaty, however, was different from them in that she was the only one with black eyes. However, Beaty is determined not to let it affect her at this time. She believes that she is neither half-blood nor nameless anymore. Her father sent her the first and last letter when she was 10 years old, and that letter mentioned her name. Beaty was unaware of the Duke's motivations for writing the letter, but anyway, she now has a name and wants to keep it that way. To the surprise of Johanna and Cardalus, she stands up and announces that she has a name, and he appears dubious when Beaty says her name in front of them. Beaty got the impression that her father didn't give a damn about her or her name. However, she believes that if she treasures that name, it will acquire significance. She can't tell what Cardalus is thinking from the serious expression on his face, and questions whether he and the butler believe she is going too far by giving herself a name. However, Beaty learns later from Johanna, the butler, that her name means blessing. She asks Beaty if she gave herself a name. If so, she was very clever, but she claims that the name was given to her by someone else. But when Cardalus addresses her by name, Beaty's heart skips a beat. Having her brother address her by name makes her feel both strange and relieved. However, he intends to refer to her by something else. Since furry tail is the most distinguishing characteristic of a squirrel, he claims that he would name her Furry Tail. He then blends the two names, referring to his younger sister as Beaty Tail. With her puffed-up cheeks, Beaty resembles a chipmunk, so Cardalus finds it funny that she pouts at the annoying nickname. She becomes irate when Cardalus repeatedly brings up the fact that she ran away from home and calls her Beaty Tail. The butler has had enough, and she tells Cardalus to behave like a grown-up if he wants to be friends with his sister. She then turns to Beaty and reminds her that she had previously mentioned meeting the Duke, and his representative, the manager, was in charge of affairs in the dukedom while he was away. Johanna advises the two siblings to enjoy themselves while conversing with one another before heading out to deliver the message to the manager. The realization that there are now just the two of them in the room shocks and frightens Beaty. While outside, Johanna is contemplating Beaty's name, which, as far as she knows, was not yet decided by the Duke. There was a special concept in North that a child will become twisted if their name is inappropriate for their destiny. Furthermore, a twisted personality may result in an accident that also causes physical distortions and shorter life. So in many cases, the kids weren't given names until after their personalities had been studied for a year or two. Furthermore, naming took especially longer when a child was loved more, and Beaty's parents' love for her was evident by the fact that her name came so late. Meanwhile, Beaty is sitting with her brother and feels uncomfortable and suffocated, and she wishes for Johanna to return soon. Cardalus, however, can only think that her hair appears softer than his as he studies it. Beaty was tiny too. In fact, he believes she may have been no bigger than a ball of tail hair. He then recalls hearing that she arrived at the mansion disguised as a squirrel. And because he is the only one who hasn't seen Beaty in that form, Cardalus becomes envious. He walks up to Beaty and gives her a serious order to change into a squirrel immediately. Beaty is perplexed and wants to know why this is happening to her. She can picture Cardalus throwing her around in her squirrel form, and she wonders if he wants to torment her. However, as Beaty appears to be lost in thought, Cardalus wonders what she could be thinking, but at least she wasn't attempting to flee. Cardalus had always seemed like a beast, intimidating everyone around him. That's why all the little animals fled from him in an attempt to avoid him even when he was a kid. He was so fearsome that even the cute animals he wanted to play with were afraid of him. He recalls wanting to touch a rabbit's ears in his childhood, only to have it run away from him. Now Beaty questions whether she was being overly cautious as she observes her brother's solemn expression. She had tried to establish a relationship with her father innumerable times in her previous life, but she had never attempted to do the same with her brother, and she questions whether setting boundaries between them at this point is necessary. She is tempted to grant his request and change into a squirrel. Though initially hesitant, she ultimately concludes that creating needless barriers between them is not a good idea, as he was the family's pride and a formidable lion shapeshifter. Beaty believes that she won't suffer any harm from their positive relationship and changes into a squirrel, and Cardalus is completely taken aback. Her cuteness has him staring at her non-stop, and even the soldier behind him is enthralled. Cardalus continues by remarking that she resembles him exactly, and the soldier and Beaty are both taken aback. The soldier presses him for the reason behind his statement that a beast like him resembled the adorable squirrel. Cardalus claims that they both had round ears, as he displays his lion ears. According to the soldier, this also meant that he was also similar to Beaty as his human ears were also round. Getting irritated, Cardalus tells him to stop bringing up his ugly ears, and Beaty laughs as they fight over that. There's a squeak, and that's another new discovery about his sister for Cardalus. He signals her to eat an almond after selecting one from the tray. And though Beaty is unsure of what to do, she is unable to say no since he truly meant well. She then moves into his palm and begins to eat the almond, and while she does that she looks so cute that Cardalus is at a loss for words once more. But then butler Johanna bursts into the room, saying that Beaty had received a call from the Duke. When Beaty realizes that her father has called, she is taken aback, because she isn't ready for that yet. Beaty squeaks loudly, asking why she must suffer, and becomes so nervous because of overthinking that the Duke wants to throw her out immediately. Johanna believes that the siblings have become closer after observing that Beaty was perched on her brother's palm. Beaty has to change into her human form in order to speak with her father, and Johanna leads her to change her clothes. Then the soldier begins telling Cardalus about how he carried the squirrel princess inside the castle on his palm, while he is still staring at his palm. Shocked, Cardalus questions him as to why he held her in his hands, and the knight declares that Beaty could not have entered the building by herself because she was so small and frail. Cardalus then instructs him to give him his hand so that he can skin it, and then tells him to stop overreacting when the soldier begins to cry. He goes on to say that weaker and smaller animals typically flee from him. However, she didn't feel afraid of him at all. The soldier says that was for a reason, and Cardalus couldn't agree more. Though they are not thinking the same thing, he and the soldier both have confidence in their reasoning. Cardalus believes that it was because Beaty acknowledged him as his older brother, while the soldier claims that it was because the princess was half human. Cardalus's expression darkens as he looks at the soldier, who instantly modifies his statement to repeat what Cardalus said. Beaty is anxious to enter the Duke's office when Johanna escorts him and Cardalus there. The manager was waiting for them when they walked into the room. He extends a warm greeting to Cardalus and talks about his coming home from combat. After that, he looks at Beaty and introduces himself as Count Gelot, the Duke's representative, as they were meeting for the first time. Beaty asks if the Duke was trying to find her, and Gelot tells her he'll speak with her through the room's communicator. She could use it to talk to the Duke, who was currently engaged in combat. Beaty is anxious because she believes that today will be the first time she hears her father's voice. However, the manager believes that her coming here was simply a result of missing her father. He tells her that although her missing him wasn't a bad thing, she should still be considerate because the North was a war zone at the time. Beaty is unable to explain to him that she wasn't acting out, rather, she was trying to support her father in winning the war. According to Gelot, she should be aware that moving alone was prohibited if she understood the Duke's reasoning for sending her and her aunt to the capital, and when Beaty thinks of her cruel, unforgiving Aunt Farina, she becomes depressed. Count Gelot advises Beaty to wait a little bit longer and to be patient. By then, the war would be over and she could finally meet her father. However, as he speaks up for Beaty, Cardalus places his hand on her shoulder and claims that since their last meeting, the Count has become more talkative. The Count expresses surprise and regrets worrying about matters outside of his pay scale. At that moment, the communicator begins to glow, so he goes to take care of it. After speaking with the Duke, Gelot informs Beaty that he would like to speak with her. Once Gelot shows her how to operate the transmitter, Beaty experiences a sudden sense of connection to a distant location. Her father's voice reaches her, and he says, why was she in the north instead of the capital? She believed her father's voice had the ability to entice people, even though she could only hear the voice in her head. Even though his first words to her were a question, she still likes it. Then the Duke snaps her out of her daze and asks her why did she run away from the capital. Beaty finds herself at a loss for words as she recalls the events that transpired in the capital. Now that she's slapped Retter, she's scared to say she did it. She's not sure what to do as someone had just betrayed her and she had just slapped him. Her father, however, was unaware of this and would believe that by attacking the royal family, she had brought disgrace upon his name. When she doesn't respond, her father, Leonhardt, gently asks what happened. She tells the truth because she believes that lying will not benefit anyone, and it shocks Cardalus and Leonhardt equally. Beaty realizes now that they were unaware of it earlier, and she missed the option to refrain from informing them of this. So she reveals everything, including how her aunt had forced her into marriage by introducing her to Retter and how she gave him a slap across the face. As no one would believe her if Beaty told them about her regression, she chose not to tell her father about it. However, Cardalus's and the Duke's responses are surprisingly mild compared to her imagination. Beaty had assumed they would be upset with her, but to her surprise, they showed her support. Cardalus compliments Beaty on her bravery, saying that it was a joke of a marriage proposal. Leonhardt concurs as well. He's curious as to how a relationship that he disapproves of could occur. He claims that there was no need to feel ashamed because the royal family was the one who crossed the line first. However, Beaty chose not to flee out of fear or shame. She did it to save her life. Leonhardt then promises to send a formal letter to the court as soon as the war is over and desires Beaty to return to the capital for the time being. Beaty is shocked and saddened, but Leonhardt won't back down. The north was a battlefield, he claims, but Beaty knew that already. After crossing the mountains, there were daily battles, and the entire territory of Aslan was essentially a battlefield. Her father tells her not to think about it, even though she wants to share what she knows with him. He claims that it was not a place for a child, and Beaty's tale subtly appears as a result of her depressive feelings. Cardalus is taken aback by what caused her to unintentionally show her tale. He loses control and goes to the communicator with Beaty to find out what their father said to the girl. Leonhardt instructed her to return to the capital, and Cardalus asks Beaty if she wants to go back. Beaty claims that she didn't want to and believes that this was his first time her brother had considered her viewpoint. Leonhardt, however, asserts that it is irrelevant as the castle might find itself on the front lines of combat without warning. Cardalus believes they can repel the attackers, but his father warns him against being overly optimistic. He then informs Beaty that she must return to the capital, and that he won't be changing his mind. Thinking that her father does not want her here, Beaty starts to cry, but her brother is going to represent her. He asks their father why would she dislike being in the capital if she was happy there, and then tells him that he has not even seen Beaty's condition. She was thinner than his tail when she transformed into a squirrel, and her human form was so feeble that a single tap would shatter her bones. Beaty is now unsure if he was making fun of her or assisting her, but Cardalus continues, saying Beaty had a look on her face like she had been starving, and she'll pass out en route to the capital if they send her back in this condition. These comments have Leonhardt sufficiently shaken, and he gives up and suggests that Beaty spend some time at the castle, at least until he returns. Now Beaty has cause for celebration, and she thanks her brother, and her tail begins to wag involuntarily. Cardalus asks Beaty if she wants to truly thank him she should allow him to touch her tail. Beaty sulks as she couldn't believe he wanted to get back at her for saving her. However, because she is so appreciative, she allows him to touch it, and when Cardalus touches her tail, he remarks on how large and soft it is. Meanwhile, Beaty is terrified and is praying that he won't pull it out of nowhere. However, terrible news arrives while they are busy doing this, and Man rushes to the room, saying that the warehouse was on fire. Cardalus is shocked and replies that if this continues, they won't have any food left to give to the Duke and his soldiers. The fire is too big to be contained, despite the soldiers' best efforts. Beaty is witnessing their struggle while the soldiers' valuable food burns. This fire, in Beaty's opinion, is the cause of the first retreat, which was going to happen again at this rate. The Duke's army's abrupt withdrawal caused the 5-year Great War to turn against the Empire. At that time, the newspaper made fun of Leonhardt's retreat. They claimed that he was a timid cat rather than a strong lion. However, he declined to provide any information as well, claiming that doing so would lower national morale. However, this issue really began with the fire, and soon there would be a major disaster affecting the entire continent. Both the population of the region and the size of the Duke's army would decline as a result of the damage. This time, Beaty has to stop it, and she has the means of preventing the first retreat. In the forests beyond the castle, Cardalus has apprehended an individual while in his panther form and returned him to the fortress. He then transforms back into a person as he says that this person was the arsonist responsible for the fire. But it was too late, as in order to prevent them from obtaining any information from him, he committed suicide after being discovered. However, Cardalus harbors deeper suspicions because it was strange how quickly the man was apprehended, and the Holy Empire's mark was tattooed on the back of the arsonist's hand. Although the soldiers believe he came from the enemy camp, Cardalus is unsure. The man had arrived right after the fire, and as if to prove he was the one at fault, he was walking out of the warehouse. However, he made no attempt to monitor the blazing warehouse and bolted as soon as he was seen. It was possible that he was acting, and the hints were too clear to be true. As Cardalus muses over the situation, a few individuals come up to him, asking what should they do now that tomorrow is the day to send reinforcements. They advise looking for some trade associations to get food, but finding a trade group and making a deal are out of the question. By then, the soldiers would be starving, and in addition, no group could sell that much food at once. But then the manager comes there and he tells people to calm down, adding that now is not the moment to figure out a solution. Right now, punishing the guilty has to be the first thing to do. Gelot desires to be punished by Cardalus first, as he was ready to stop such a thing from occurring but still failed. Gelot is adamant, despite the people telling him it wasn't his fault. He claims that they had grown complacent because they believed their preparations to be sufficient, and this incident resulted from that. He apologizes, and Cardalus finds it to be a sincere expression of regret. The manager's laid-back attitude, however, concerned him, and the other men advised the young master to refrain from punishing him too severely. However, Beaty interrupts their conversation, and the men ponder whether she was the girl who came back. Beaty pouts when Cardalus refers to her as furry tail, but then she gets embarrassed when she sees him without clothes. The people find it adorable that Beaty seems to be here to worry about the situation with them, but she claims to already have a fix for the food scarcity problem. She then gladly presents her solution to them. She was holding some tubers, which resembled sweet potatoes, on a piece of cloth. When the men see it, they are astounded, because this plant was allegedly referred to as the boogaman, as it was horribly poisonous. Cardalus has something to say about the plant, whose true name was tuberosum, and it was also known as the seed of the devil. It was a hardy weed that could spread quickly, and furthermore, it was poisonous, earning it a lot of unfavorable nicknames. Beaty, however, asserts that those nicknames were undeserved. This could be the answer to their food issue, and she claims that it was a miracle plant. Gelot then begs her to pardon him because he doesn't think this plant can provide any kind of remedy. He claims that although she had a lovely heart and a kind desire to help them, she should just go and play with her maids. Though Beaty doesn't need his assistance this time, Cardalus does not like how Gelot is acting. She asks if the Count is aware of the advantages of tuberosum, and Beaty answers it for him because he doesn't have any answers. Tuberosum grew everywhere, and it had a tuber the size of her brother's fist, which according to her was sufficient for a meal. Gelot responds that the tuber and the leaves were poisonous, despite their size being sufficient, and the soldiers will have stomach aches and be unable to fight if they eat it. And while they suffer from diarrhea, the Holy Empire would chop off their throats. As he says those things, Cardalus is just staring at Gelot, who remarks that he might have said too much. Beaty says that he is right and the Count is pleased as he says it's a good thing to own up to your mistakes. Beaty, however, cuts him off and claims that the tuber and leaves were the only things that were poisonous, and all other things he said were incorrect. Gelot asks her what she means, as stomach aches and many other problems can be caused by eating tuberosum. The men gathered there can attest the fact as many unwitting consumers suffered greatly from it. Beaty asks them if they are okay with eating the tuber if they don't have stomach aches. She then devours a whole tuberosum, tuber, stem, and leaves, without pausing for anyone to say anything. Everyone is in disbelief, and Beaty smiles proudly and confidently back at them. The crowd descends into panic, and an urgent call is made to the doctor. The men are anxiously awaiting the results as the doctor examines Beaty, but surprisingly, he claims that there were no signs of poisoning. Cardalus repeatedly and aggressively confirms it with the physician, who doesn't waver in his diagnosis. According to him, traces of poison will always remain on the tongue, no matter how little of it, and Beaty's tongue showed no signs of illness. Beaty asks Cardalus if he now considers the tuberosum to be edible as he hops over to him. This forces Cardalus to think. Without a doubt, tuberosum was toxic and caused stomach problems. However, there must be edible and inedible parts of the plant because Beaty ate it and did not become ill, and he wants to know if there is a way to tell them apart. Another knight speculates that Beaty may have a unique capacity to break down tuberosum because she was a squirrel shapeshifter. As everyone speculates about the reason, Beaty pulls out a bag and declares that it contains the solution to the puzzle. The tuberosum stems were stuffed into the bag, and Beaty explains that most people cut the stem and leaves off of the tuber before eating it. However, the stem is the only part able to neutralize the tuber's poison. Beaty claims that she had broken apart and eaten the stem before coming here, so she did not become poisoned. It would be a year or two before this fact came to light naturally. It was discovered when a man attempted to kill himself by consuming a whole tuberosum, but was unsuccessful. The idea that the stem is the antidote has now intrigued the knights, and it was the first time they had heard of anything like that. While observing the events in silence, Cardalus chooses to put his trust in Beaty. He eats a tuberosum plant that he picked up without first having the antidote confirmed, shocking the soldiers. Although they believe it to be risky, Cardalus is unharmed. When he tells them that nothing happened, the soldiers are in complete shock, and they believe he offered himself as a sacrifice in order for the theory to be verified. Now that they are all intrigued, they choose to investigate the tuber for themselves, and they discovered it was accurate, as after eating the tuberosum, they experienced no negative side effects. According to Beaty, this was the answer she was referring to. Tuberosum held the key to ending the food crisis as it grew everywhere. The men are now so excited that they want Beaty to inform the Duke of this in a letter. In addition, they say that a large number of tubers were to be dug up and sent as supplies. Beaty believes she can stop the first retreat from occurring right now, otherwise 10 more years would pass before the war ended. She chooses to take advantage of the circumstances to ask the Duke for permission to remain in the castle until her coming-of-age ceremony. The ceremony would take place 10 years later, which is also how long she would shorten the war by. In her opinion, this was a fair exchange, and if she's skilled at negotiating, she might even be able to get enough financing for her next venture. Beaty is content and engrossed in her delightful dreams while she is praised by all, who call her an incredible genius. However, there is a person who is dissatisfied with the outcome. In the corner, Count Gelot stands silent as he wonders how he should report it to that place that the matter was resolved in this manner. On the front lines, the soldiers in the Duke's camp are starving. They joke that they might not survive by the time the rations arrive as they wait for them. But all of a sudden, the food rations show up. Additionally, there is a letter from Beaty to Leonhardt. When he finishes reading it, he questions where did Beaty learn to write like this. However, he is sidetracked by the disturbance his soldiers make when they discover that the carriages are loaded with a deadly plant, and they wonder if the wrong carts were sent. However, a letter containing directions on how to consume the tuberosum was delivered to a soldier. The soldiers find it difficult to accept the words of an 8-year-old child, Beaty, and for them starvation is a better way to die than diarrhea for them. However, the Duke approaches the carts and claims that his daughter sent them. He picks up a tuberosum plant and consumes it whole without hesitation. Although the soldiers are scared, they are shocked and touched to learn that Leonhardt is fine. They believe that the Duke put himself in danger in order to get rid of the fears of his soldiers. They're not scared to eat the tuber plant anymore. They believe that only their Duke could have instantly lifted the soldiers' spirits and eliminated their fear. They declare that they will support the Duke and follow him for the rest of their lives. The soldiers are happy now, and they find it amazing that the little princess figured out this solution. They believe she will undoubtedly become a unique talent in the north. Leonhardt is also reading the letter Beaty sent him inside his tent. In her letter, she expressed her desire to assist him in any way she could, no matter how tiny. She also draws a comparison between his accomplishments in the northern mountains. The note his daughter sent touches Leonhardt. He finds it surprising that her daughter can write a letter with such beauty at such a young age. After writing a letter to her father, Beaty learns that he accepted the tuberosum she gave him. She is also aware that many workers have gone to the forest in search of the tuberosum. The fact that the public has accepted Beaty's solution makes her very happy, and she also wants to search for the tuberosum in the forest. But Cardalus stops her and tells her to take a nap. Johanna informs Beaty that a room has been prepared for her by the castle's maids just as she was trying to go to the forest to collect tuberosum. Beaty never imagined this would happen because all she could think about was how her aunt would treat her in the capital, and she expected her to be treated here like that too. She believes that the guards and attendants are likewise unimpressed with her. As Beaty is lost in her pessimistic thoughts, Cardalus notices her sister's adorable and humorous facial expressions. Cardalus then extends an invitation to Beaty to visit her room, and she immediately runs after him. The closeness between Beaty and Cardalus makes Johanna happy as well. Beaty is content with how Cardalus treats her, though she is a little irritated that he refers to her as a furry tale so often. He shows her the room she was going to be in, and Beaty finds them in a hallway that is lined with doors on either side. She thinks she was being given a place to stay in the hallway itself, and that shocks and disappoints her. But she is wrong, as her brother shows her a lavish and opulent room, and all the rooms in the hallway are hers, including a playroom, a dressing room, and a library. Beaty is certain that this is a test for her and is unwilling to accept the situation as it is. She tells Cardalus that all she wants is an empty room, she doesn't need a fancy room. After hearing what Beaty said, Cardalus is not pleased, and he carries her to see her room because he thinks his sister is too cute with such a request. Beaty is taken aback when Cardalus carries her because she isn't used to such circumstances. She then tells him that she must feel heavy and requests to be put down, but he doesn't think her body is heavy. Beaty's body should weigh 10 times more than this, according to Cardalus, and she imagines herself to be a fat squirrel with a pig's body because Cardalus says this. Beaty is astounded to see her entire room when she opens the door. Her room is decorated with red and gold accent pieces, a plush red and gold sofa, and a large bed. Not only that, but her room has jewelry and cosmetics on display within her dressing table. Equally fascinating is the view from Beaty's room's balcony, where she can take in the stunning lake that she typically only sees in books. Her previous room was very different from the one in the castle, so she didn't anticipate being given a room like that here. It seemed like there was no life at all in her former room in the capital, but this was different. Beaty feels it is her great fortune to have escaped the capital and made her way to the castle, because her room's balcony affords her such a nice view. She also pledges to give it her all for the territory in the duration that she resides in the castle until the age ceremony is eventually held. Finally, Beaty is permitted to take a nap after she and Cardalus take a tour of her room. Beaty is advised by Cardalus to get enough sleep and to let him know if anything bothers her. Just as Cardalus is about to leave Beaty's room, he hears her getting up. Beaty questions Cardalus about why she was told to go to bed so early when the sun was still up. She also inquires as to whether northerners go to bed before dusk. In response to Beaty's inquiry, Cardalus says that she must be extremely exhausted since she has run that distance on foot from the capital to the castle. Beaty finds it annoying that Cardalus constantly makes fun of her short legs. She didn't walk or run to get to the castle. Instead, she hitched a ride on a carrier. When Cardalus notices that his sister isn't quite asleep, he asks Beaty to come play, and shows Beaty a toy with excitement. It is a hamster wheel, and Beaty finds the toy offensive and believes Cardalus is making fun of her. Beaty doesn't appear pleased to see the wheel, so Cardalus displays a different toy. He occasionally gives Beaty hints as he goes to get the toy, mentioning things like a huge living room, a dressing room, and an elegant dining room. When Cardalus mentions the clue, Beaty is eager to see the toy. When all is said and done, Cardalus pulls out a large toy house for a squirrel, which makes Beaty unhappy as well, and Cardalus is also perplexed by her facial expression. Johanna abruptly knocks on her door as she arrives to prepare Beaty for bedtime by changing her clothes. Johanna discovers that Beaty has changed back into a squirrel when she walks into his room, and witnesses Beaty and Cardalus having fun, and she is delighted to see that the siblings are getting along. Beaty thinks she's not having fun as Cardalus is the one who makes her transform into a squirrel because he genuinely wants to play with her. Beaty was given a variety of toys by Cardalus, and he places her on a toy train and pulled out stuffed animals that are the same size as Beaty, but she did not enjoy them. Johanna asks her if she enjoys playing with Cardalus, and Beaty answers with irritation, but all she says is something Johanna can't understand: a squirrel sound. Following that, Johanna gets her ready to go to bed, and when she returns she discovers Cardalus is still in her room. She asks if he is not going to bed yet, but because of her short tongue, Beaty finds it challenging to pronounce Cardalus' name and bites her tongue. Cardalus pinches his sister's cheeks because he finds her behavior to be very adorable. He then carries his younger sister to the bed after swaddling her. He drapes a blanket over Beaty's body and gives her a gentle head rub. Beaty has never experienced such affection, so she is overjoyed to be treated that way. On the other hand, Beaty's presence has completely ruined Gelot's plans, which is why he is devastated in her room. In addition, he uses harsh language, calling Beaty the rat princess with a tiny frame similar to a nugget. But then, he gets a call through the communicator from the palace, and the second empress of the country, Faye, thinks that there should be good news soon. And in the capital, she has Viscount Farina with her, and she tells her that she only has one job, and that was to ensure Beaty was useful to them, and she failed it. And she threatens to not spare her the next time she fails. Beaty wakes up from a very deep sleep the following morning. At the castle, one of the maids greets her, and before Beaty has truly woken up from her sleep, the maid asks her to select the dress she will wear today. She selects the outfit that the attendants have brought. She actually tries on 7 dresses, and she has to try on more depending on the maid's recommendations. The maids always say nice things about her, no matter what dress she wears. But Beaty finds it offensive when the maids refer to her as cute, since it makes her think of what transpired in Capital. She recalls that the word cute describes a desirable item that is attainable, as the servants in the capital only called gold and silver cute as they pocketed it. She also believes that the castle's maids share her definition of cute, so she shouts that she is not cute and is her own person, and the surprised maids start praising her again. Finally, after a long drawn dress selection process, a maid shows Beaty to the dining room. Cardalus is waiting for her to join him for breakfast there, and she is shocked that he has prepared so much food on the large dining table and is unaware that she will be having breakfast with him. Beaty rushes out of the dining room, fearing that Cardalus will be offended if she eats with him. Just as she's about to leave, Beaty gets a call from him, asking if she left her things behind or if she doesn't enjoy eating with him. She doesn't say anything when Cardalus asks her this, and after he insists her to come eat with him, she eventually agrees to share breakfast with him. Beaty believes that she is receiving very friendly treatment from everyone in the castle. She considers the possibility that her father may not have disclosed his hatred for her to the occupants of the castle. She also believes that when her father returns home, the warmth she currently experiences will change. She therefore resolves to turn cold before everyone else in the castle does. But she wishes to give berries to the occupants of the castle as a token of gratitude before she becomes a cold-hearted person. When she gives the berries to the castle's residents, they are delighted, and Beaty's excitement to find more berries grows. Then as she is searching for berries, she feels strangely attracted by a tree and is drawn to follow it. Beaty answers the tree's call, and then out of nowhere, a maid grabs her hand and wakes her up. Beaty and the maid hear the commotion outside shortly after, and abruptly, the castle guard yells for Beaty to not come outside, as a magical attack is about to happen. It's true, and a white squirrel hops onto Beaty's head out of nowhere, saying that he has finally found her, and she vanishes along with the white squirrel, despite the castle guard's best efforts to keep her safe. Upon witnessing the incident, the maids and guards become alarmed, believing that Beaty has been abducted by a demonic creature. Cardalus has just returned from the forest, unaware that Beaty magically disappeared a few moments ago. He went to the deep forest to hunt large white foxes whose fur was taken and would be given to Beaty for a scarf. However, as soon as he entered the castle grounds, he noticed that the guards and maids were in a panic. Once he sees the chaos, Cardalus's cheerful smile fades into a serious expression. He approaches the guards, who tell him while shaking with fear that a demonic beast has taken Beaty hostage. The guard then apologizes for his error in her security. The other guards inform him that the white squirrel is an animal that has killed many bandits in the northern mountains. When Cardalus learns of this, he tells the guards to prepare because Beaty is in danger, and gives the guards orders to murder the white squirrel. Beaty arrives in the northern mountains at the same time, and she appears perplexed as to why she arrived there all of a sudden. Then the white squirrel greets her, saying that he has been searching for Beaty for a very long time, and informs her that she is a part of himself. According to the white squirrel, he's a star, and in order for Beaty to comprehend what he stated, he gives evidence. He shows her a constellation as he says that he is the squirrel constellation, and she receives her powers from him. Beaty recognizes it and thinks that the white squirrel is her ancestor by looking at the constellation, and while it is more complicated than that, he says she is correct. The white squirrel was the one who gave her the second chance to live her life after reincarnation. This squirrel is just the intermediary that Beaty's constellation chose to contact her because he didn't have much time to enter the world. He wants to tell her the reason why he gave her this chance, but before he can do that, his powers begin to fade, and as he leaves, he tells Beaty to take care of the demonic beast. A short while after the squirrel departs, Beaty hears a call, and is suddenly confronted by a boy wearing a black robe with half of his face covered. Because of the resemblance in height and voice to Cardalus, Beaty believes that he is her brother. But since he is not, she worries that the boy might also be in distress like her, so she hesitates to approach him more. Then it starts to rain before Beaty can get ready to leave, and though she is unsure of where to hide, the boy calls her and tells her to take shelter next to him. A white squirrel emerges from Beaty's bag as the mysterious boy and Beaty are hiding under a large tree. When the mysterious boy tries to get rid of the white squirrel, Beaty becomes enraged. She informs the mysterious boy that this squirrel is not your typical squirrel, and quickly defends it from him. After hearing Beaty's explanation, he ceases trying to kill the white squirrel. Beaty is starting to get cold and sneeze because the rain hasn't stopped yet, and on top of that, she finds the mysterious boy to be quite strange, so even though he tries to take her somewhere, she doesn't want to. In addition, she becomes even more wary of the mysterious boy after he addresses her as lady. Beaty says she is suspicious of him, but the mysterious boy is also suspicious of her because of the clothes that do not suit the region and the demonic beast she was carrying with her. This mysterious boy continues to invite Beaty to stay in a hut even after they have a dubious argument. In order to keep her from getting caught in the rain on the way to the hut, he also covers her head with his robe. When they finally reach the hut, it is empty. Beaty is appreciative of the boy for shielding her head with his black robe, but it has gotten wet, which makes her feel bad for him as well. She asks the boy to remove his robe so that his clothes won't get wet, but she is unsure if the boy truly wants to do so and turns to the other side in case he does not want her to see his face. The boy then declares that he doesn't mind being seen by Beaty and removes the robe. She turns back to see his face and finds that he had his eyes covered by a black blindfold. She is shocked because despite having an eye patch on, he still looked handsome. Beaty sees the boy's lovely nose, glowing skin, and mole beneath his eye, but then realizes that she can't gaze at him for too long. They light some logs inside the hut to gain some heat, and the mysterious boy tells Beaty that they should sit in front of the fireplace. Since she is doubtful, he kneels in front of her and offers to carry her closer to the fireplace, and Beaty interprets his actions as flirting. Though he's still young, the boy can already entice women, so Beaty pulls a face at him, and her face gets closer to the boy's while she is lost in thought. Beaty looks surprised and turns away from him right away, as she feels that she needs to exercise caution around the attractive boy because she doesn't want to fall prey to a flirt like him. Beaty is suddenly hungry, as indicated by a sound coming from her stomach. She feels guilty about not eating more this morning, and the boy gives her some snacks. She wants to share it with him, but he says he is not hungry, and she eats it and thanks the boy. But shortly after that, the sound of a rumbling stomach comes from the mysterious boy's stomach. Beaty becomes anxious because she ate everything, and the boy calms her, saying that he can withstand his hunger and go hunting when the rain stops. But Beaty notices that it will continue to rain for some time. She bolts from the hut when she spots a tuberosum leaf in the yard, and starts digging them. The mysterious boy looks shocked to see Beaty sprinting outdoors and making holes in the ground, and then comes back and cooks the tuberosum plants for him. The mysterious boy is aware that the plant is toxic, so he questions Beaty if she wants to kill him. She is confused and says that he must not realize that the plant could be eaten. He thinks that she has no motivation to kill him, and he has only been on edge because his life has been filled with hardships, and assassination attempts on his life were more common than peaceful days for him. Beaty tells the mysterious boy with confidence that the plant is called devil's seed and that it is okay to consume, and starts to give him instructions on how to cook tuberosum. Upon finishing their meal and feeling content, they choose to explore the hut. Beaty is incredibly interested in everything in the hut, but the mysterious boy is only giving her a sidelong glance. He thinks that the girl is still the same person he used to know in the capital, and he murmurs it under his breath, calling her little mango. He notices that Beaty's eyes, which are the same shade of black as the night sky, are exactly as they were back when they first met. Beaty peeks out the window and finds that the rain has stopped, and together they exit the hut. She can hear people calling her while she is still standing at the hut's door, and she can recognize that the voices belong to the castle's residents and guards. The mysterious boy wants to escape as soon as he hears the voices of the castle guards calling Beaty's name in distance. He pats Beaty's head and tells her that he has to go right away because they will look suspicious if they are seen together in the hut, and advises her to take good care of her health. Beaty is startled when she turns back to see that the mysterious boy is no longer standing behind her. Then the castle guards call, Beaty answers, and they are able to locate her, and as soon as the guards notice her, they alert Cardalus. He rushes over to meet Beaty right away, and is terrified that she might have suffered any kind of harm. Beaty tells him that she's okay and that she hasn't been hurt. The mysterious boy is still standing near the cottage, and hiding on a tree branch. He gets to know that the girl's name was Beaty, and he wonders that even though it was smart to hide her name, why did she not tell him anything about her family? He questions why so many people refer to Beaty as a lady, and on top of that, Cardalus was next to her. The mysterious boy believes Beaty is an important servant because her appearance does not seem like she is a princess of the nobility. As the mysterious boy listens in on Beaty and Cardalus's conversation, the latter almost discovers his presence, but he ducks behind a tree. The mysterious boy is also suspicious of Beaty's connection to Aslan, and he plans to learn more about it. Cardalus then notices Beaty carrying a white squirrel, and she refuses to give the white squirrel to him when he asks for it. He assures that the white squirrel will be swiftly and painlessly killed if she hands it over quickly, but Beaty continues to turn down his plea. She screams at Cardalus, explaining that she has a particular reason for wanting the white squirrel to survive. But then Beaty's vision suddenly becomes blurry as she looks at Cardalus while defending the white squirrel. She can't figure out why her vision suddenly gets fuzzy and passes out, and Cardalus and the castle guards repeatedly call Beaty's name in an attempt to wake her up. As Cardalus takes her back to the mansion, he is shocked when the doctor tells him that Beaty was sick because she got wet in the rain. He cannot believe that, and the doctor has to insist that her body was much different from his body, and she was weak enough to catch a fever from a mild rain. Cardalus finally begins to understand the situation with his sister, but it is hard for him since he has never been sick before. Then suddenly, Beaty sneezes and the doctor runs to get more medicines, and as everyone fusses around them, Cardalus wonders how his sister can be so weak, and he gently holds her hand, promising to protect her the next time. After that, every time Beaty sneezes, the doctor and the maids panic to take care of her, but they stop when she tells them that she is fine. The doctor tells her to rest well because Cardalus was always staring at him angrily, and he might lose his life if anything happened to her. He tells Beaty to rest in bed, and she thinks that she has only been allowed to leave her room recently because before that she had to stay locked inside. And staying in such a soft bed was very comfortable and easy for her. But then she hears the maids talking about how the Duke and his shoulders should return home by now, and Beaty can't control her excitement, and comes out of bed. She asks the maids if her father is really back, and they tell her not to be in such a rush as she is still not healthy. Then one maid thanked her for sending the tuberosum to the army when the storehouse was burned, and only because of that were the soldiers and the Duke able to return. Beaty is relieved that she was finally going to meet her father, and the first retreat did not happen either. She is really excited to meet him, and seeing her face red with excitement, her maid fears she is sick again. But as Duke Leonhardt and his men receive a grand welcome, the soldiers can only talk about how Beaty's innovative idea to eat tuberosum saved all of them when the pantry burned down. They think that she is a real genius and wonder what kind of person she would be. Meanwhile, Beaty is dressed up nicely to meet her father for the first time, and her maid says that even though they had not much time to get her ready, she looked good in anything. She tells her to change into something more comfortable if she is feeling unwell, but Beaty refuses the advice because she wants to make a good first impression. Then another maid tells her that the Duke has returned, and Beaty runs down the stairs because she cannot be late for their first deal. As Leonhardt returns to his mansion, the servants welcome him, and Beaty sees her father's face for the first time. She is out of breath, and her heart is beating too fast. She tries to calm herself down before talking to him, but the Duke is annoyed at seeing her there, and he stares at her while he demands the servants explain what the child was doing here. His words are a great shock to Beaty, who starts trembling, as she had expected this to happen. She just forgot about the inevitable because everyone in the Duke's castle was very kind to her. But now that she has the Duke's cold gaze upon her, she is terrified. He just wanted to ask why she was out of bed when she was ill but did not know how to say it properly. And as he reaches to pat her head, she suddenly imagines that he was going to hit her just like her aunt used to. She flinches and shivers as he wonders what is wrong, but then Cardalus comes there, and he welcomes his father back. Leonhardt tells him that thanks to the rations he sent, they were able to finish the war quickly, and Cardalus replies that he was not the one who deserved the thanks as it was Beaty who did everything. As Beaty listens to this, she realizes that she did a good thing for the Duke and his soldiers, so she should not be so worried. She decides to start her plan for a better future and address her father as the patriarch, telling him that she is here to offer him a deal he won't regret taking. She says that, just like the time tuberosum helped them when the storehouse burned, she was sure that it would prove even more beneficial soon. Leonhardt doesn't understand what she was saying, and he thinks she is still delirious from fever. He tells her that they will talk tomorrow and orders the butler, Johanna, to take the girl to her room, and she takes Beaty away. Later, Leonhardt is in his office, where his assistant Pezes tells him that the number of people who visit their territory has been dropping a lot recently. Then Joanna comes in and reports that Beaty was resting after dinner, and she no longer had the cold. The Duke is relieved and thinks that his daughter was small and weak, and he cannot believe that she grew up so quickly in the time he had not seen her. He wants to embrace her, but then he remembers her trembling when he tried to touch her earlier and wonders what was wrong. He suddenly asks Johanna and Pezes if it was because of his scary appearance, and while the former tries to be polite, Pezes does not hesitate to say that Leonhardt was really scary. He says that the Duke was scary even to full-grown adults, and those words go straight through his heart. But Pezes seems to be saying these things with full sincerity and admiration for his boss. Leonhardt is hurt by these words because he thinks this is why his daughter is avoiding him. and then he suddenly remembers that he has something for her. He takes out a few documents from his pile and gives them to Pez's, who is still rambling on about the Duke's terror, and tells him to prepare everything before Beaty comes to meet him tomorrow. The next day, Beaty goes to talk with the Duke about her deal, but she is distracted by the large number of desserts on the table. Pez's is there to tell her that her father bought all these rare desserts from a famous shop just for her. As Beaty takes a seat, she tells Leonhardt that she didn't come here to eat sweets, but he is insistent, and she had no choice but to relish the delicious sweets. It was the best food she had ever eaten, but everyone staring at her made her feel pressurized, and she wondered if it was the Duke's tactic to make her back away from her deal. So after she finishes eating, she tells her father that she was here to make a deal with him, and he wonders where she learned to use such difficult words. As she gets the go-ahead sign, Beaty starts explaining that she has noticed that not many people are coming into the territory these days. Leonhardt is shocked that she knew it, but she does not tell him that she used to go running around like a squirrel in her free time to gather information. Beaty continues her explanation and says that despite being a strong fortress, the land of Aslan was lagging in agriculture. They had to export most of their food, and soon things will turn even worse as the price of cereals will skyrocket. She remembers the time when the maids at the capital did not give her enough food because of the continent-wide famine, which caused great damage to Aslan. But Beaty has a solution for this, and she plans to use it to stay here till she grows up. And she confidently tells Leonhardt that she will solve the food problem in Aslan. But he replies that there was no need for her to worry, as he had already made a deal with the nearby empire of Satis to sell them surplus cereals because they were known for their wheat plains. Leonhardt is confident that they can just get the food from somewhere else, but Beaty tells him not to be so confident. She says that the food shortage was not just Aslan's or the empire's problem, because in the event of a drought, everyone would suffer, and for that reason, she has brought the solution to them in the form of a potted plant. Everyone is surprised to see it, and Beaty gives the flower pot to her father, telling him that it was the tuberosum plant. Leonhardt thinks that she was gifting those flowers to him, and even though they were roadside flowers found everywhere, he felt they were the prettiest flowers in the world. Pez's asks Beaty if she really plans to feed that to everyone after she said she had a good plan, and Beaty reaffirms what she just said. The knight wonders how to tell her that tuberosum does not taste good at all, and even the most disciplined soldiers find it too tasteless and boring. Beaty already knows what he is thinking, and she asks him if he is worried about the taste. Pez's is shocked, but Beaty tells him not to worry, as she has already prepared a solution for that too. She brings a covered cart with her solution and removes the cloth to present the soup made from tuberosum to everyone. The smell is delicious, and as Beaty tells the people about it, she thinks about how she did not know the exact recipe, but with Johanna's help, she could recreate the dish. She says that the soup tastes as good as it smells, and she checked it first and is confident that everyone will like it. As Leonhardt hears this, he is stunned and nervously asks Beaty if she has already eaten the soup. She says that she couldn't tell if it was good otherwise, and Leonhardt panics as he calls for a doctor immediately. Beaty wonders what the matter is and tells her dad that it is safe to eat tuberosum, and he has done that too. But he yells at her that she is different from him. Those words strangely hurt Beaty, even though she had thought that she was used to getting underestimated like this. But as he tells her that she must cherish her body, she wonders if he is worried about her, but then she shakes that thought off her head because she can't believe it. She thinks that Leonhardt is afraid that the rumors about the Duke's daughter getting poisoned will reduce his reputation. Also, the way he immediately called the doctor despite her saying that she was safe, Beaty thinks there is no trust between them, and making a deal will be hard. She wants to say something, but he silences her, saying that her health is most important. The doctor is called, and he examines Beaty and finds that she is perfectly healthy, and she thinks that people in the north are very sensitive about their health. But then she asks her father if it was fine to continue the conversation about the deal now, and he agrees on the condition that she will go straight to her room and rest after it is over. Beaty is happy to hear that and shows him more dishes made from tuberosum, like cheese, salad, and steamed tuberosum. Everyone is surprised that the little girl could cook so many dishes, and she says that tuberosum was the perfect food considering the price, taste, and availability. Seeing that everyone was already on her side, Beaty turns to Leonhardt again and says this was the price she was offering. He wonders what the girl wants in exchange for doing this, and he plans to give her even a private mansion or a star from the sky if she wishes it. But then Beaty says that she wants to stay here till she grows up, and Leonhardt is surprised. He wonders if she was doing this to get her share in the will, but he is going to give it to her when he passes away. Beaty tells him that she doesn't need a glamorous room like the one she is using right now, and she will be fine even in the attic or the basement, so he won't notice her at all. Leonhard is shocked and wonders what was going on, and she repeats that she will make do with anything as long as he does not send her to the capital. She is really serious about it and just wants to live here until she comes of age, but Leonhard replies that it is not going to happen. Beaty is shocked that she got rejected so quickly, even though she solved the food problem, and she desperately tries to tell him about her other plans to help the North. She begs to let him stay here with tears in her eyes, saying she will pay for her stay here, and Leonhard tells her that she does not need to pay money since this is her home. Beaty is stunned, and she does not do anything as her father commands her to go back to her room as their conversation is over now. She wants to make more efforts, but realizes she has already messed up her first deal badly and goes back. She is depressed in her room, and the maids fail to cheer her up. But she tells them that she is fine and there is no need to worry. But as Cardalus comes to see her, he finds her gloomy again and pats her head, asking her what was wrong. He asks her to tell him if anyone bullies her, because he will take care of them. He asks her not to be so gloomy anymore, and Beaty thanks him for comforting her, but then she asks him to stop because he was tangling up her hair. Later, as she sits in her bed with a cup of hot milk, a stuffed toy, and a toy blade that Cardalus gave her to protect herself, Beaty thinks that everyone cares for her a lot. At first, she only wanted to stay here because it was safe, but now she really wants to live surrounded by all the kind people, and she is fired up to succeed at the next deal. But then she wonders what her father meant when he said that she didn't have to pay money to stay in her own house. Meanwhile, Leonhard is having a meeting with his trusted people, including Pezes, Johanna, and Gelot. He is worried about his daughter and thinks they need to pay more attention to the small details. He thinks that Beaty is too weak and that she cannot tolerate Alan's cold, and remembering one time when she was very young still haunts the Duke, who could not do anything for her when she fell sick. That is why he sent her to the capital, as the weather was fine there, but she was trying hard not to go there. Gelot suddenly speaks up, and he insists that the Duke must strengthen his heart to send Beaty to the capital, as it is in her best interest. He says that there were enough people to care about her there, and her health was worsening here, so she should definitely go back to the capital. Leonhard knows this too, but he does not want to send her back so soon, and he worries that she might run away again if she is homesick. Pezes is shocked to see the look of worry on the Lion Duke's face, and Gelot tries to convince the Duke to send her away since it would be a hindrance to his plans as well. But then Pezes says that he has a niece of Beaty's age, who was quite stubborn and starved herself to get her parents to agree to her. Those words are a serious blow to Leonhard, who thinks that his already weak daughter may become even worse if she does not eat, and sending her back to the capital may backfire. He is wondering if he should let her stay here for a little while, and Pezes says something to improve the tense atmosphere. He calls Beaty a genius for finding a brilliant solution for their food problem, and Leonhard's mood is instantly changed due to the flattery. But then he suddenly becomes suspicious about why the Viscount, Farina, did not say that about his daughter. He seems angry that she was keeping things from him despite his orders, and Gelot tries to defend her, saying that she must be trying to not put undue pressure on Beaty by calling her a genius at such a young age. Then Pezes says that someone must take responsibility for not being able to protect Beaty, and letting her come to the north on her own. Leonhard agrees, and to prevent anything like that from happening from now on, he plans to strengthen the security at the capital. Pezes understands his role now, and he gives the Duke a report in private, telling him about all the people employed in the capital mansion. He has also sent his best informants there to find out what they were doing in the mansion since Beaty had gone. Leonhard says that this was good, but apart from sending her back, they must also find the person responsible for making Beaty run away. The next morning, Beaty wakes up to the sweet fragrance of flowers, and she is shocked when she finds her room filled with yellow flowers and a giant stuffed squirrel toy. As she navigates through her room, she wonders who could have sent her so many flowers that were really costly up here in the north. But she liked the giant stuffed squirrel and the golden acorn because she thinks she can do business with them. Then her maid tells her that all the gifts were sent by Leonhard, and Beaty is shocked to learn that they were return gifts because she invited him to eat something she made herself. Beaty is happy to learn that the return gifts mean that he recognizes the value of her recipes, and she thinks that the gifts are a sort of investment money. She asks the maid to see if she can make an appointment with the Duke today and starts penning down a thank you note. Beaty visits Leonhard later and gives him the thank you note, and he thinks that she must be satisfied with her gifts. But as he reads the letter written by his daughter, he decides to frame it as a family heirloom. But he gets more than what he bargained for in the form of tuberosum recipes, and Beaty thinks that now that everything is going smoothly, she should bring up the deal again. Leonhardt asks her if she wants anything else, and Beaty takes this chance to say that if her project helps everyone, she wants to stay here until she comes of age. But the Duke rejects her again. She reduces the term to just 1 year, but he still refuses to listen, and she realizes why her father was called the Iron Wall of the North. She wonders if she should present her 1-month trial period offer, but Leonhardt tells her that if she is homesick, he will build a castle similar to the one here in the capital too. Beaty is shocked to hear that he was planning to build an entire castle instead of just letting her stay here, and she tells him that there is no need for that. She thinks to herself that she doesn't want to be with the people who killed her. As she thinks about Farina and Retter, she is sure that she does not want to return to the capital. She tries to convince Leonhardt that letting her live here would be cheaper, but since that would not be appropriate, she says she will help them fight. She can't join the action herself, but she promises to help in other ways, like she did recently. And if anyone comes to harm her, she can defeat them too. Beaty was thinking of how she slapped Retter, but Leonhardt finds her cute, as he can't believe her fluffy little fists can harm anyone. He pats her head, wondering how she can be so cute, and Beaty feels strange. Then Leonhardt tells her that he has other plans now and will return to work, and Beaty can still not take her attention away from his touch, which left a lingering warmth even after he went away. The next day, she received some toy weapons and training items as a gift, some dresses after that, and the Duke kept gifting her things every day. Initially, Beaty was confused, but then one day, she became furious as she realized that the gifts were no longer sent out of goodwill anymore, but because the Duke was telling her to take them and get lost in his castle. She can't leave like this, and to tell him what she wants clearly, she takes all the gifts back to his office on a cart. She tells Leonhardt that she wants to return everything he has gifted her until now, and he asks why she wants that. Beaty tells him that instead of these gifts, she would rather stay here and be a part of his family. As Leonhardt sees his daughter, he is amazed that she grew up so quickly because her birth and infancy were still clear in his memory like yesterday. He is also filled with regret because he couldn't stay behind and watch her grow. He thinks that since winter has not yet arrived and it was relatively warm, it was fine for Beaty to stay here. But since he is lost in thought, Beaty fears the worst because he has given no response. So she requests that he let her stay here for just a little bit, and as she calls him father, Leonhardt is surprised, and he can no longer be strict with her. So he gives in and lets her stay at the castle until winter, and Beaty is so happy that her tail automatically manifests and begins to wag around. She is really happy that her long negotiations finally paid off, and she has around 1 month until winter arrives. In the meantime, she can think of another plan. Leonhardt tells her to keep the presents, and Beaty replies that she has no need for them now as she is staying here. But he insists. But then Beaty fidgets and says that it must seem shameless of her, but apart from the gifts, there is one more thing she wants. She tells her dad what she wants the next time, and though he is shocked, he agrees to keep that in mind. Meanwhile, in the capital of the empire, the emperor, his queen, and Prince Retter are taking part in a victory procession as the people cheer them on for the recent victory. The queen flatters the emperor, saying that he deserved all the praise because the victory was under his leadership, and the emperor, Nather Dux Legastrum, is pleased to hear that. But his mood is fouled instantly when he hears people talking about the great golden lion who won the war for them. Nather is trembling with rage, but his queen calms him down, saying that he doesn't have to mind the words of the foolish people, and besides, she has already planned everything. He is confused as the queen tells him to rest assured and then turns back to instruct Retter to do his best to get the job done perfectly. He also smiles at her mother while telling her that he has perfectly prepared everything. Back at Aslan, in Count Gelot's castle, a man has come to meet him in the dark of the night. The count had told him not to come to meet him since it could raise suspicions, but the man replies that he came here in complete secrecy, so he doesn't need to worry. He tells Gelot that no one knows that the culprit who set fire to the warehouse that day was his own daughter because she died in the fire. The cold-hearted Gelot asks him if he was here for sympathy, but the man is here only to collect the reward he had been promised in exchange for his daughter's life. Gelot says that he understands and will reward him even more generously than promised, and he invites him to come and take it. But as the man goes ahead, anticipating money, he gets stabbed in the guts by the evil count. He smirks as the man dies and tells him to greet his daughter in the afterlife. Then his butler comes in and tells him that he had a guest, but as he sees the corpse, he says he will take care of the rest. Gelot asks him about the guest and learns that she is a lady from the capital. Back at Beaty's room, she is trying to figure out a plan to extend her stay at the castle. She tries to come up with an idea but can't focus and gives up. She turns into a squirrel to go somewhere else to clean her mind, and she climbs on a high branch. She thinks that she has never climbed so high since she returned from the capital, as she would hide in the trees whenever the maids seemed to be in a foul mood. High places were her only resting place and safe haven, and she gets lost in the thought of freedom when she suddenly realizes that she was here to think of a plan. But then she sees Leonhardt opening the windows and realizes she was just outside his office. She climbs down to the window while he talks with Pezes and reads some notes that contain a lot of names. The Duke was reading a list of names and read that Beaty meant happiness and blessing. Pezes tells him that the name was wonderful and moved everyone. And more than that, it was amazing that Leonhardt liked the name his daughter was already using. Pezes says that it was a pity that the Duke could not get to name her himself, but then he cheers him up by saying that Beaty's name suited her the best. He says that it feels like only a few days, but it has been 8 years since he started searching for a name, and Beaty was the only one who was loved like this in the north. Then Leonhardt suddenly turns toward the window, and when his assistant asks if anything was wrong, he replies that he opened the window so that Beaty would come in. But she did not. She had gone back to her room, where she could not believe that her father had been thinking about her name for so long. She thought that she received her name when she was 10 years old in the first life because he did not think about her. But she realizes that he had been thinking about her constantly, even through the war. And she wonders, if he missed her so much, did he really not hate her? She is really happy because of this that day, and she sings as she is cooking something in the kitchen. The maids ask her the reason for her good mood, and she replies that it was just the good weather. But she can only think about her name, which her father had carefully thought about before giving it to her. Beaty tries to convince herself that he did not care so much about her and thought too long only because the name was to be recorded in the family tree. And she thinks of doing something like that for her own sake and prepares the ultimate tuberosum dish in the form of cookies. She tries to convince herself that she is making them to increase her value, not because she wants her father to enjoy them. But she still wants to see him enjoy the cookies after all, and she asks the maids what kind of drink he likes the most. Beaty takes the cookies and tea to her father's office, but spots a guest there. But when she realizes who the woman is, she starts trembling from fear. Farina was the guest, and as she recognizes Beaty, the girl is terrified and drops the tray as she asks her why she was here. As Farina walks towards her, she says she is as clumsy as always and wonders who she takes after. She steps on the cookies as she says that the girl couldn't even greet her when they were meeting after so long, and she freaked her out when she left without saying a word. Beaty is terrified, and her aunt pinches her cheek as she tells her to stop worrying her. It was like this in the past too, when Farina pretended that it was for Beaty's sake and cursed and beat her. When she was young, she believed that it was family love, and she endured it for a long time before she realized her aunt's true nature. But this time was different, and she slapped away her hand and asked her to let go of her. Farina shouts at her, what was she thinking? And Beaty replies that she was pinching her too hard. The maids heard all this, and they think that Beaty's cheek is really red and she must have been hurt. Farina sees it too, and she says that her niece's cheeks turned red just when she teased a little, and she stares at the girl, thinking that she got arrogant just because this was her home. Farina asks Beaty why she was staring at her like that and says she will teach her some manners later, but she tells her to look where she was stepping as she was making the floor dirty. The woman is taken aback, but then she sees the cookies under her feet and gets shocked as her expensive shoes become dirty. She tells the maids to hurry up and clean them, and Beaty is upset that the cookies she worked so hard to make were ruined. Then suddenly Leonhardt comes there because of the noise and asks what was happening here. As Farina sees him, she blushes and is lost for words, while she thinks that he is still the most handsome man in the empire. She greets him politely, but the Duke ignores her and goes straight to his daughter, asking if she dropped the tray because it was too heavy, and Farina is furious. Leonhardt says that the cookies look good, and Beaty replies that she worked hard to bake them for him. She starts crying, and the Duke realizes that her little daughter made the cookies for her with her own hands, and even if they were broken, he must still cherish them. He goes to pick them up, and Farina scolds the maids, saying that they should act before the Duke cleans the things himself. They quickly take action, and Farina says that the maids of Aslan were so slow, and she could teach them a few things if he sent them to the capital. But Leonhardt is furious and tells her to stop joking around, and she is nervous as she asks him why he is suddenly being so rude. He tells her that she is not part of the Aslan family and has no place to comment about their household. Beaty realizes that her father hates her aunt a lot, and when he spots that, Leonhardt decides that he cannot be angry in front of his daughter, so he sends her back to her room and then invites the Viscount to his office because he has to ask a lot of things from her. In the office, Farina is still fawning over how handsome the Duke is, but he means business and asks her if she has anything she needs to explain. She says she doesn't understand what he means, and Leonhardt angrily slams his desk as he says that she doesn't seem to understand the current situation. He asks Farina how dare she do that to his precious daughter and asks her to explain why she let Beaty come to the north all alone. She mumbles that she just ran away unconsciously, and the Duke is completely disappointed now. He says that she was shrugging off her responsibilities and blaming an 8-year-old child. He says that she does not deserve to be called a guardian and now understands why his daughter ran away. Farina is trembling with fear because she realizes that, at this rate, Leonhardt will definitely know that she mistreated Beaty in the capital. She tries to tell him that he was getting her wrong. She says that she did her duty and wrote to him regularly about Beaty, and when she ran away, she immediately sent him a message through the royal crystal ball. She is confident that she fulfilled her responsibility as an aunt. Leonhardt says that he knows all of it and asks her why she never mentioned Beaty's special talents in her letter. Farina is confused because she can't believe that the girl has a talent, and as the Duke says that everyone considers Beaty a genius here, she thinks that she has never felt anything like that. Instead, she did not even allow her to read ordinary textbooks and did not hire tutors for her. But then Leonhardt asks her the more important question about how dared she choose his daughter's fiancé without even consulting him. As she fidgets, the Duke already knows that she couldn't have done something like that without the support of the imperial family. There were two great families in the empire, the Astrum family and the Aslan family, and the royal family was trying to monopolize power by arranging a marriage between the kids. Leonhardt is furious as he decides to punish Farina for the crime of conspiring with them and using his daughter as a pawn. And the woman is suffocating because of his intensely intimidating aura. She wants to escape from this situation somehow and suddenly falls to the ground, pretending to cry. Farina says that she misses her sister Starshan, because if she were alive, she would not be treated like this. Leonhardt is taken aback as Farina asks him how he can treat her like that when her sister asked him to take care of them. He remembers his wife, who asked him to take care of her little sister in her last letter, and he suddenly finds himself helpless before that. Farina was banking on this to happen, and she plans to keep on utilizing this situation. But Leonhardt tells her that she should stop daydreaming. He tells her that she will not get any mercy as she lets his daughter go out all alone. Farina says that her sister asked her to take care of her child before he passed away, and the Duke replies that if his wife had not said that, she would not be standing in front of him right now. He tells her to get out immediately and says she can live in the living room. When Farina goes to the living room, she throws a tantrum as soon as she is by herself. She thinks that the Duke really believes she intends to look after his child, but she was here because she has a plan. Her plan is to live with Leonhardt, the strongest and most handsome man in the empire. She lifts up a bottle of suspicious medicine and says that to make her dreams come true, she just needs to obey the orders of that person and drink it. The next day, Beaty is feeling sleepy because she could not rest well because her aunt was in the same mansion. And then she receives another present from her dad. It was a fur coat made of the northern fox's fur, and Beaty finds it too large and heavy, while the maids say that it was the most wonderful item. But then Beaty asks them if that thing has come, and the maid tells her that she has already put it on the table. There is a letter on the table, and Beaty had asked Leonhardt about it earlier when she told him that she does not need presents the next time. But she wants him to write to her. Now, she is happy to find a letter her father has sent to her, and she is nervous as she takes it out. But she is stunned when she finds that he had only written for her to not forget her coat no matter where she goes. The maid thinks that the Duke could have written more, but Beaty is overjoyed. She kisses the letter and puts it in her favorite bag, which is the golden acorn. She thinks that the things inside it were her treasures, and she will read them again today. In her previous life, she sent hundreds of letters but never received a reply, even at her coming-of-age ceremony. But now she has so many important letters from her father. At that time, she was curious about his handwriting and could only imagine it, but now she is happy. As the maids take away the fur coat, Farina enters the room, and she is surprised to see what is going on. Beaty is startled as she hears her voice, and the woman wants her to show the cute thing she has there. She asks her if she does not want to show it to her, and Beaty grabs her bag because she does not want to show her aunt her father's letters because they are precious to her. But Farina is not interested in that. Instead, she goes straight to the fur coat and says that its rare white color suits herself perfectly. The maid tells her that the coat was a gift for Beaty, and Farina snaps, asking if she can even touch it a little. She pushes her back, saying that she was acting like she was here to steal it, and then orders her to get out as she has to talk with her niece about something. As Beaty sees the maids getting scolded for no reason, she gets sad, and then she stands in front of them and tells her aunt that they were just doing their job and she should act with dignity as a guest. Farina is furious, and even as the maids say that she does not have to defend them, Beaty sends them outside, and they ask her to call them if anything happens. They call Beaty by her name, and the aunt is surprised. Then the girl asks her what she wants to talk about, and Farina starts talking about how her attitude and behavior have changed so much in the short time she has been away from her. She then brings up her name and says that it was a beautiful name, and Beaty can't believe that her aunt would praise her. But she plans to hurt her by telling her that there is a special custom in the north that she must not know about. Names were very important here, and parents don't name the kids they hate, like her. Farina says that Beaty is 8 years old and still has not been given a name, and she finds it pitiful that the girl had to name herself. Beaty is sad too, but then her aunt says that she requested the Duke to give the girl a name, but he refused, and she is surprised now. Farina keeps on saying that Leonhardt hates her, and Beaty thinks that this is different from what she has experienced. That day, she clearly heard that her father had been searching for a name to give her for 8 years, and now she wonders why her aunt was lying to her. But she can recall such things happening many times before. Farina lied to her, saying that the Duke did not send even a single coin to raise her, that he ignores all her letters, and that he wouldn't come here to see her face because he doesn't love her. Beaty had heard those words countless times, both in this life and the previous one, and while she believed them earlier, now she realizes that the aunt was the problem. She correctly guesses that Farina was going to say that she is the only person she can trust, and things become clear to her. As a child, Beaty always thought that her father hated her, but now she has seen everything with her own eyes. Seeing her so silent, Farina thinks that she has successfully manipulated Beaty, and leaves, telling her to be quiet and obedient from now on. Growing up with her abusive aunt, she came to believe that she was a hated child, but now she knows that it was a lie. She wants to do something about it, but she does not have any power or money right now, and she cannot get revenge. But then Beaty motivates herself and decides to think of the most important thing first, and that is to settle in the Duke's castle. She has only 1 month, and to extend that time period to her coming-of-age ceremony, Beaty decides to take out her other useful cards besides Tuberosum. She has a lot of thick books on her table and decides to finish them quickly. The next day, when the maid comes to wake her up, she is surprised to find that Beaty was up sooner today. As she keeps talking about how sleepy she usually is, the maid finally sees her face full of dark circles and sleeplessness. She is horrified, lets out a scream, and asks the girl if she did not sleep at night. Beaty tells her that she did not sleep, and now she has to hand over the document she had written to the Duke. The maid panics, says she will deliver it, and tells the girl to take a nap. She leaves, and then Beaty is finally relieved that she finished her work on time. At the breakfast table, she is still very sleepy, and Cardalus is surprised and asks her what's wrong with her. She tells him that she couldn't sleep last night, and her brother can't believe that she became so weak just after a night. Beaty doesn't even have the strength to argue with him, but he pats her head and tells her not to worry, asking her to believe in him because he will help her. She is moved, but then she wonders what he means by helping her. Meanwhile, the maid takes the document to the Duke, who is surprised to see that his daughter wrote all of it by staying up all night. He wanted her to take better care of herself, but he can also tell the effort she has put into these papers. And according to what she had written, there will soon be a giant calamity that cannot be overcome by human strength. He immediately orders Pezes to call everyone to his office, including his daughter. When everyone is gathered, Leonhardt asks Beaty if everything written in the document is correct, and she confidently affirms. He is still surprised at the climate prophecy, but she replies that it was not a prophecy but a prediction. Gelot tells Beaty that if it were a prediction, it could be wrong too, but she is confident that it won't be. She had seen the exact events before she died in her previous life, and to make everyone believe her, she showed them the proof. She says that there are records in history about the phenomenon of drafts at regular intervals. Beaty first reads a passage from an adventurer's book that is in the form of a poem. It tells about the blue bird who has been forgotten for a long time, flying in the night sky, and when it returns, the land turns to ice. Beaty says this was the record of a small ice age like the one that was coming, but Gelot refuses to believe her just because of a poem in an adventure book. He asks her to give scientific proof, assured that she will have nothing, but Beaty is ready for that too. She brings out the Empire's climate records and says that in the years 254 and 486, a blue star appeared in the sky, just before a great famine. based on the time period of its arrival. It was scheduled to come soon. The blue bird in the poem refers to the blue star, and in the summer it was seen there would be terrible droughts and food shortages, and the winter would be the harshest in 200 years. Now, a man asks her if they should prepare something for this winter, and Beaty replies that the drought would not end in just 1 year. But first, they need to stock up on the most important item, which is food. As everyone is impressed, Pezes asks her if she meant tuberosum by food, and she affirms. Beaty says that before today, they could easily import food from other territories, but now they can grow their own food too. She tries to convince Gelot using the tactics she read in a book, as he is the only one opposing her, and then she tells him that they will be selling food for free but gaining something else in return. The people in the castle know about the uses and recipes of the tuberosum, but the common people are still unaware of it for the most part. Beaty knows that it would be hard to make the people eat the tuberosum just by commanding them because they are not like a military. And on top of that, there were 2 other problems. First, most people were still wary of tuberosum because it was poisonous, and the spread of information in the territory was too slow. And that is where the free food stall will come into play. Beaty has made a sketch about her plan, and only Leonhardt finds it cute. Then Gelot asks how they can tell people about tuberosum, and Beaty replies that they will do it by mouth. First, they will let the people eat the tuberosum dishes with their own mouths so that they know the taste. It would be much more effective than pasting a notice on the bulletin board and hoping for passers-by to read it. And if people eat it and like it, the information would spread faster through word of mouth. For that, Beaty proposes a food stall, and while everyone is really impressed and supportive of her idea, Gelot cannot let it happen. He says that it would be expensive to set up a free food stall, and that would not fit in their budget. But Beaty has already figured out a way to cover the expenses without charging money for them. She says that in exchange for food, they will get information from the people about the various places in need of food. The information will be greatly helpful to them and even spread the benefits of tuberosum even further. Beaty says that information is a powerful weapon, and using it, they can sell food without incurring any costs. Everyone is stunned by the brilliant idea, and ask her how she knew they could accomplish so much just by opening up a food stall. They plan to make a memorial statue to thank her, and Beaty is shocked as they discuss it amongst themselves. She thinks everything is going off the rails and thinks that the only person who could stop this situation from worsening is her dad. She looks at Leonhardt intently, and as he starts thinking about the statue, she feels he will stop others. Instead, he is even more into the idea of erecting his daughter's statue, and she has no choice but to stop them herself. She calls for their attention again and says that it is still not over as they have budget issues to resolve. She has prepared something special to take care of their funds so that there is no problem, and Pezes notices the scroll in her hand. He asks the Duke if their budget was not enough, and unfortunately that was the case because most of their budget went into preparing for the war. But then the finance manager of the territory tells Beaty not to worry about it because the tight budget will soon be better. She is relieved that the most important problem was not as bad as she thought and hides the scroll away for the time being. And with that, the plan to set up free food stalls was passed in the meeting. The first part of the story ends here. In the short time she is at her home, Beaty has accomplished a lot. But there is still too much to find out and solve. What is the big plan of the Empress that involves using Gelot and Farina, and how will the young protagonist deal with them? Also, who is the mysterious boy she met in the forest, and will we see him again soon? There are many questions like this, but we will find them out soon in the coming videos. So if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and a comment, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.